what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today is the story of myself losing my father to suicide in 2016. So I want to first thank you. This room's packed. Thank you, Lynn, for bringing your class, and thank you for everyone for joining me as I share this story. I think it's going to help a lot of people, whether you're suffering from anything or whether you've gone through it in your life. So thank you. So I'm going to start with August 6, 2016. August 6, 2016 was just before I was starting my third and final year of FLUBU. At that time, I had gone home with my boyfriend to go watch a play with his grandparents and family. It was Mamma Mia. It was pretty good. We went to go see it at a place called King's Wharf, which is actually just on the water on Georgian Bay. Beautiful venue. And during that day, I was talking to my dad through text. And I was just asking him what he was up to, and he was going on a country tour. My dad loved country tours, and what that means is he hopped in his truck and he just drove the back roads. And that was his favorite thing to do. There was lots of farms that he liked to look at from his childhood, that kind of thing. So he was out for a country tour. So I said, I'm going to go into the play, and then I'll text you when it's done. So he said, okay. So I went into the play, watched it. It was pretty long. It was almost 3 hours, so it was a long play. And then we came out and we started taking some pictures by the water, and I texted him and let him know that the play was done. We had hopped into the trucks, and we were going to go have my favorite fast food, Chinese. So we started going to go to Uncle Roy's, and we were going to go have some Chinese food. And I texted him and let him know that I was going to go have some dinner. The play was done, and then I'll be going to my mom's place after that. And he just said, have fun, I love you, and that was the last text I got. So after that, I went to my mom's place, and we decided, let's go to the casino. It's one of our pastimes. We like to go to the casino, try to hit the jackpot. So we went to the casino, and I was texting my dad through it, and I just said, hey Dad, how's it going? There was no reply. That was pretty normal. Usually he would end up going out for a pop beer with friends after a country tour, and that was pretty normal for me not to hear from him. We had a relationship where we could kind of text periodically throughout the day and not hear from each other for a few hours, and that was completely normal to us. So then we started doing stuff at the casino. I got a pina colada, was having a good time with my mom, my boyfriend, and my grandma, and I texted him again around 11 o'clock, and I just said, hey Dad, what's up? What's going on? He said nothing. So then, even then, I was still okay with it. He's probably at the bar with his friends. So then we started driving home around 12 o'clock. I sent him a message when I got back at 12:30, and I just said, hey Dad, you there? Nothing. So that's where I started to get a little bit worried, just because he usually sends a good night before he goes to bed. I sent one last message at 1:15, and I just said, hey Dad, I hope everything's okay. Please get back to me. And at 1:30, there was a knock at the door. So I was down in the basement where my bedroom is, and my mom was sleeping with me because my stepdad sometimes snores. So she was down with me. And my boyfriend was on the couch, and my grandma was upstairs, and so was my stepdad. So we heard the knock at the door, and we thought maybe someone's doing Nicky Nicky Nine Doors. That happens in a small town. So we went over and we looked up, and that's where you see the front door, and there was a flashlight shining in. So then when I saw the flashlights shining in, I knew something was wrong, and my mom and I both had this feeling that something was going to happen. So we went up to the door, we went up the stairs, and we opened the door, and the police officer was there. And he said, I'm looking for Alanna LaHay and Alanna LaHay. And in that moment, I just knew that something really horrible had happened. So I said, what happened to my dad? What's going on? Where is he? Is he okay? Did he get in an accident? And I just kept rhyming off questions, and he said, you know what? You're going to have to sit down for this. I need to talk to you and your family. So I kept asking questions. I was shaking. Everyone kind of came together up in the family room, and then that's where he had stood in front of me, and he had told me that they had found my dad deceased, and they assumed by the scene so far that it was by suicide. And in that moment, I completely broke down. That's a moment in my life that I don't think I'll ever completely remember. My emotions were through the roof. I feel like I fell on the ground. I was hysterically crying. I did not expect this at all, and I was saying, are you sure? Are you sure it's my dad? Is there any way that I can find out, like, what's happening right now? My mom was crying, everyone was crying, and we weren't sure what happened. We didn't even know that this was something that could have happened to my dad. So we started talking to the police officer, just trying to get as much information as we could. Just trying to get as much information as we could. And we started asking him, where did you find him? And it was in a forest. And so they had said that they found him in the forest, his truck was there, and the time that he may have passed away was around 7:30. And as you had heard before, the last text I got from him was at 7:15. So that last text of saying, "Have fun, I love you," was the last message that I got from my dad. They then let me know that he had left a letter for me, but I wouldn't be able to get it until it had gone through processing for evidence, because they wanted to ensure that it was in fact a suicide before they completely classified it as a suicide. So then I had to wait about 4 days in order for that to happen. So in those 4 days, before the police officer left, I was saying thank you, and I'm one of those people where when I get stressed or I get upset, I try to thank the person that either gave me the bad news, or I try to make them feel better, because I know as a police officer, it must be like so difficult to go into a family home and let them know that someone had passed away. So I said thank you, and I actually at the end asked him if I could have a hug from him, and he complied and he gave me a hug as well. He stayed for about 2 hours just talking to me and trying to console, and he gave me his cell number if I ever needed anything. My dad was friends with the police chief as well, so this was actually a death that was close to home for the entire town. So the next day I changed right away into one of my dad's sweaters that I had, and I literally stayed in this sweater for 3 straight days. I did not shower, I did not eat, I did not drink anything. I just sat there and I held a bear that he gave me when I was 10, and I just sat there and I did not talk to anyone. I would sometimes tell someone to pinch me. I would say, just pinch me please, I don't know, like, is this real? Am I dreaming? Maybe if I fall asleep, I'll be able to wake up and he'll be here. And I couldn't text him. There was, you know, like once you lose someone and you can't contact them anymore, it's really hard, and it's, especially when they just disappear, it's so difficult. So what we ended up doing was my uncle and my other uncle, and my dad had 2 brothers, and his mom was still alive, and so was my grandfather. So we went over to their place, and that's where we were going to go and see if they were okay as well, because we knew she was definitely struggling. We went there, and one of the things that will forever stick in my mind was they had towed my dad's truck there. So seeing his truck and not knowing that he was there was even more difficult for me. But the most difficult part was that he had a shrine of pictures of me all around the truck. So if that doesn't give you chills as a part of the story, I don't know what will. The fact that there was a shrine, there was a trophy that I made when I was little, and it was out of styrofoam, and it said my dad's number 1. It was on the dash, and he had his favorite, he had Pepsi, he had popcorn, his favorite foods, they were there too, and he had a massive photo album full of pictures of me with pictures all around the truck. So to see that, and obviously they didn't have time to clean that up, but it was a huge shock for me to see that. So the last thing he had seen was that, and he actually was found with the picture of me in his pocket. So it was really difficult for me to find all these things out, and the fact that he chose to go this way was something that it was really hard for me to deal with, and for my family. We did the celebration of life within the next 4 to 5 days. It was very quick, and there was over 300 people that actually joined in to come and pay their respects to my dad. My dad was a prominent member in the community where I came from as well. He did food drives all through my elementary school. He helped others as much as he could, whether it was landscaping through his business, or whether it was just merely shoveling my elementary school teachers' driveways, and he did that past when I was in college. He was doing it while I was in college as well. So he was just a really great guy, and the way that he hid this was through doing good things for others. And he also hid it through alcoholism as well. So that was the way that he kind of hid his demons, so that way it wasn't showing through. During this time, so we're at a week now after this had occurred, during this time I was completely contemplating whether or not I was going to go back to school. Obviously a death like this in the family is something that a lot of students and anyone even going back to work is very, very difficult. So I contemplated going back and finishing my final year. I contemplated doing my job, which was my first year as president with CAA, and just even merely returning to Sudbury. I wasn't sure if that was something that I was going to be able to do. And what really changed things for me was the letter that my dad left for me said, "Keep doing the things that make your mom and I so proud." And I kind of took that to my heart, and I said, you know what, the thing that he would have wanted me to do most was to complete my final year. He wouldn't have wanted me to change anything in my path. He was proud of me for the reason that I was always working hard and I was trying to achieve my dreams, and I have to keep doing that. So my final semester in FLUBU, and I'm sure Lynn can attest to this, was a blur for me. I attended all my classes, and I was there, I was present, but to be honest, I was not completely attentive in class. I was listening and I was absorbing things, but you could tell there was just a gaze, a glaze, I guess, in my eyes, right? Because I was going so that I could finish and that I could get through this because it was really difficult. So I finished my final semester, but during that final semester, what I did was there was some grieving tendencies that I went through. So some of the grieving tendencies that I went through was my dad's favorite foods were Kraft Dinner, snap peas, and mock chicken. And I know mock chicken sounds pretty gross, but trust me, that's what he ate daily. He would get 400 grams of it and he would just eat it. It was pretty gross, for sure, but those were 3 foods that I stuck out to him very prominently. So what I would do is I would actually, and my boyfriend would have to buy it too, was a hoard of Kraft Dinner. And I would literally just eat Kraft Dinner almost every day. I ate Kraft Dinner all the time because I felt like it was something that was close to me and him. It was something that we would eat together, and it was something that I kind of put towards him. So I would eat Kraft Dinner, I would eat mock chicken. I was eating really unhealthy. I lived a sedentary lifestyle, and I just didn't feel like going out anywhere. Once I came home from school and work, I would just veg out. I wouldn't speak sometimes. I would just sit there, and I would just either drink water or whatever, and I would just sit there and watch TV. And I actually confided in Reba. And does everyone know Reba? Yeah? So I confided in Reba, and actually the reason why I confided in Reba was not just for the humor, but because Reba had red hair, and my dad had red hair. So I confided in Reba because it felt like I was close to that humor that my dad had as well. So those were some of the things that I started. The other thing I started was I switched to Coors Light. And that was kind of my drink that I had. And I actually started drinking a little more than what I did before. And I don't mean alcoholism. I don't mean that at all. What I was doing was, for me, drinking even once or twice a week was not like me. And I started doing that. And I noticed that tendency very fast. And I kind of just kicked it in the butt. And I realized, you know what, Alanna, you're doing these tendencies. They're not healthy. You need to find a way in order to do something that's going to be able to benefit you in the future as well. So what I ended up doing, which also was a bit of a stressor, was I actually dedicated myself full-heartedly to my work. So for some of you that know, I only worked 20 hours last year, and I didn't have to do any more than that, but I ended up doing 40 to 50 hours in my office. I was there at 8 p.m. at night trying to make a varsity game as best as possible for an athlete. I was there all intramurals. I was there for setup, takedown, making sure the athletes were okay afterwards. I was setting up Bellet's talk day. I was there all the time. And what I realized at the end of my final semester for the academic side of things was I used it as a way to cover up my grief and my feelings. So I got so busy that I never took the time for myself. And I was helping others, and it made me feel good, but it's temporary because I was still feeling really horrible and needing to grieve. So in my final semester, which was a co-op, I was supposed to go to university. That was something that I was really keen on. But what I realized was I really did need to take that year for myself. So I ended up staying with Cambrian and working here, which I think was the best decision I ever made. And I was able to take the time that I needed to grieve, and I took the time that I needed to focus on the things that I wanted to focus on. Because after that loss, I really didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. It kind of changed my whole realm of what direction I wanted to go in life. So after that, the grieving tendencies and getting through that, the one thing I wanted to mention was the camping trip. So as I told you guys, my dad passed away in a forest. So one of the hardest things for me to do was to go on the camping trip. And the Flubu camping trip is kind of a thing that you do in third year, and you guys know this. It's a super fun thing to do. And one of the things that I was really worried about was going on this camping trip, because I was going to be immersed in a forest for about 4 days. And that was something that I was really scared about. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I might have to leave the first day. And Marty and Lynn were actually extremely accommodating, and what they did was they had a phone out in the wilderness just in case I needed to call my mom. So they had that just in case I needed to talk to someone. Isabel, one of my best friends, she was my partner through the whole canoe trip, and she was always making sure I was okay. She slept with me in the tent, and she always just made sure I was okay whether we were canoeing or whether we were going on a hike. Because once you're immersed in all the trees and all the forest, it was really hard for me. But Marty, Lynn, and having their accommodation if I needed to get out quickly, it just made me feel like I was safe. And I think the best thing I did was actually go into that forest and face it head on and do it with my friends, because I think that support system that I had made me successful in that camping trip, and I ended up enjoying it more than I ever thought I would. So that was something really hard that I had to do, but the camping trip is one of my best memories of FLUBU, regardless of how my dad had passed away. So I'm really glad that I went. So just talking about my final year, so in my final, other than what I had mentioned in my first semester, in my final year I still dedicated myself full-heartedly to my job and just trying to make things better and innovate. And actually within my final year I was the first female recipient of the Ontario Campus Recreation Award. So with all my work for recreation on campus, both varsity, intramural, and wellness opportunities, and I also got the President's Recognition Certificate as well upon graduation. But the thing is, behind all that success, and people see that and they say she's okay, but the thing is, I'm never okay, right? So when you lose someone, you're always going to be struggling, and there's 5 stages of grief that I've heard of, but really, you bounce from each stage. It depends on the day. If it's my dad's birthday, I'm in a rut, right? Because there's different traditions. Holidays, I'm in a bit of a rut. But there's days where I'm able to be in that huge resiliency portion where I'm great, I'm good. But there's days where I do go home and I do cry, or I do go home and I think about, man, I wish I could call my dad and tell him that I did this today. When I went on CBC this morning, I was like, oh my God, my dad would think that's so cool, right? And I couldn't call him and tell him because I can't do that anymore. So there's days where I'm like that, and the pain of losing a loved one never goes away. So no matter how much success I have all through life, there's always going to be something behind me that is on my shoulder where I don't have that person in my life anymore, and that's really, really hard to deal with. So that's kind of the story behind Alanna's story. But what I did want you guys to get from this talk was, first of all, that someone's always there to talk. The stigma on mental health is still there, but if we take part in the conversation, we can end the stigma for good. People who contemplate suicide, they feel that the world would be better off without them, and that's totally not the case. My dad felt that it might be better that he leaves because of all the things that were going on in his life. He struggled with mental illness early in life, and no one was there to help him or talk to him because the stigma was there when he was younger. So he had no one to talk to, and all through life he struggled until he came to that point in his life where a bunch of things were happening at once and he couldn't bear it anymore. So he chose to pass by suicide. So each and every wonderful human on this earth has a purpose and a place in life. Whether you're a father, mother, son, friend, you name it, by leaving this earth you create a void in those around you. Not only do they deal with the shock of planning the funeral and looking around in your things and trying to decide what to give away or what to keep or what to throw out, but they will also never deal with the piece of them that is missing from their heart for the rest of their life. And that's how it's going to be for me forever. I'm always not going to have my dad there for those really big milestones in life, right? I didn't have him at my graduation. So I was actually sitting up on the stage to receive my award, and I was looking out, and the one person that wasn't in the crowd was my dad. So that was really hard for me to deal with, and I actually had to hold back tears the entire time I was up there, because I was really proud of myself that I was up there and I did it. I finished FLUBU actually all through my FLUBU career with a 4.0 regardless of my last semester. So I was really proud of myself that I was up there and receiving that award, but I had to hold back tears the entire time because it was hard for me to look out, and I got to see my stepdad and my mom and my boyfriend out there and my friends, but what I didn't see was someone who had supported me also all through my career until that point. And like I said, although I had a lot of success in the year and a half, behind it was a lot of struggle and a lot of resiliency. I was blessed with a lot of support in my life from my family, friends, and coworkers that allowed my healing process to be positive and communicative as possible. So I just wanted to do some important mentions, and some of them have stories behind them which are actually very feel good. First of all, my mom and stepdad, they supported me through my story, and are even here today in this room. They're actually at the back of the room. So they're here today, and they actually drove all the way up from Victoria Harbour, which is about 2.5 hours away, just to be here to hear my story and to support me, which is amazing, and they're the most amazing human beings in the world, and I couldn't have gotten through this without them. So that's one mention for sure. Isabelle Giroux, she's here as well, actually. She came for a week to aid with anything that we needed with the celebration of life. She had never met my dad, but she came down anyways, and she helped me. I actually had a eulogy that I wrote on my phone that I wanted to say, but I wanted it written on paper so I wasn't looking at my phone. I was shaky. I might miss some words. So she actually wrote out my entire eulogy for me while I was meeting all the people that were coming in. And She also brought me booster juices late at night, knowing that I needed them. I mean, she was there for anything I needed, whatever time of night it was. So that's one important mention that I just wanted to say. I wouldn't have been successful without her. Neil Morrow, who's actually a friend from back home, he was there in the late hours of the night as well. And he honored my dad in the most amazing way. He actually got a custom jersey made. My dad was a hockey player, a goalie, and he loves the Blackhawks. So he actually got a jersey made with my dad, LaHay on the back, number 20, and he gave it to me for my dad's birthday. So he did that for me, and that's something that I'll never, ever give away because it's so amazing. From the college itself as well, I have Allison DeLuisa, who's always been there for me and supported me. Robert Odette, who isn't here today, but he really supported me. Lori Sallow, she was our old varsity clerk, replaced by Sharon Marcotte. She's in New Zealand, but she's been there for me all the way through my first day back after 2 weeks of grieving. She brought me a little orchid, and she walked around with me in the college all day just making sure I was okay and people weren't asking too many questions, and she really supported me all the way through. She closed the door if I needed to cry. She would make sure I was okay all through the day, and she was just a complete amazing person. Sharon Marcotte, she's always been there for me all through this whenever I needed to chat. She brought me actually a Be Happy, kind of like a basket, and it was all yellow, and it had really bright and lovely things and baked goods just to make me feel better, and the brightness really helped in that time where it was very dark for me. Martin Dubec and Lynn Kabaroff, they were amazing all through my FLUBU career, not just in my FLUBU career, but after. They supported me academically when I needed to talk to them about something. They understood when I maybe was possibly looking at videos in class instead of actually listening because I just needed to get away for a little while. They understood completely, and whenever I needed to talk to them or whenever I just needed to get away, they were okay with it if I needed to leave the room. They were completely supportive, and the support they gave me on the camping trip I'll never forget. So thank you to Marty and Lynn. Nikki Farah as well, who isn't, oh, she is here. Hi, Nikki. Nikki Farah, who's also supported me all the way through. She's been on Facebook, always wanting to chat, and she's always been in my office and always ready to talk about mental health and my dad's story, so thank you for that. Dale Bosley and Giuseppe Politi, they're not here as well, but they're actually two varsity coaches, and they were there for me all through the process. They texted me, made sure I was okay after events, and just having that little bit of support really helped me, and I really want to thank them for that. And then my entire 2016-2017 female council, there was all 6 of us, and they were very supportive all the way through. Whenever I needed to step away, they would take control. They knew what to do, and I'm still best friends with them today, and we talk readily. So thank you to them. And then also to Ryan Mitchell and Dominique Pilon, who are also here. Thank you to them because they came in after, I got to meet them after, but they've been a huge support system for me as well all the way through. Just having really fun times with them and being able to chat whenever I need it, it's really appreciated. And last, but definitely certainly not least, my boyfriend John. We have been together for over 6 years, so since high school, and in the time I needed him most, he stuck by my side, dealt with my nights of no sleep, crying, hysterics, and days where I just didn't even want to speak at all, and I just sat there. Without him, there's no way I could have ever gotten through my final year, so thank you, John. And then these are just a handful of supports I had. So there's so many people that I had. There's a lot of supports that I could have tapped into at the college. But because of the support system I had, I was so lucky to have so many people that were willing to support me and to listen, which is the most important part, whether you're suffering from someone who did it in your family or you're suffering yourself. Listening is literally the most important part, just having someone to hear your story and to give you feedback or help you in whatever way you need. And they were really helpful in being able to help me heal and succeed in my final year. So long story short, from my story, I just wanted to encourage you to support and advocate for mental health and wellness. The pain and struggle that I went through with my dad, losing my dad, is something I would never wish for anyone to ever experience through mental health resulted suicide. And mental illness is silent, so I want everyone to work together in order to vocalize it, and as a result, it will end the stigma. It's really important that we all continue the conversation, not just on Bell Let's Talk Day, not just on Cambrian Wellness Week, but all through the year. And that's really important because there's people that struggle not just on those days, it's all throughout throughout the year and all their entire lives. So we have to make sure we're there for them. And other than that, that's my story. I also just wanted to mention, I did start a blog, if you guys ever want to look at it. It's called Never Too Late for a Llama. The reason is my nickname is Llama with my friends. And I actually am talking about the entire journey I went through with grief and losing my dad. And there'll be a lot more details within that blog that you'll be able to tap into and read my story and kind of be able to reflect on and that kind of thing. I do have cards. I'm not fancy, but but you're welcome to look and reflect and message me. And if there's the other thing I want to reach out to you, and this isn't just for the FLUBUs that are here, this isn't just for FLUBU in general, it's for anyone who's at the college. If anyone ever needs to talk, like, I'm always here. That's one thing that I wish I could have done for my dad if I would have known, is to be able to talk with him. And I'm here to talk with anyone should they ever need to talk, because that's the most important thing, is being there to listen. So, yeah, thank you.